In the Internet Explorer group. And with that, Rob, over to you.
Thanks a lot, David. So first, I always like to introduce myself as part of the non-existent IE team, because for so long everybody said there's no IE team, there's no IE team. Well, we're here, and we're working hard on all sorts of updates to the browser and the technology, and we're really excited to come out and engage folks in the community. So I'm very happy to be here. I want to spend, I think I have a 20-minute stay of execution. Is that correct, or does that still apply?
Yeah.
A 20-minute stay of execution on.
As long as Fred says it's okay.
On questions.
You can choose to override that if you wish, I suppose.
Okay. And I want to start with kind of a level set on some of the fundamental problems that web browsers and really any internet client is faced with. And then I want to talk about some of the changes specific to XPSP2, and then we're going to talk about IE7, which is the version of IE that's shipping in Windows Longhorn. So the browsers have vulnerabilities, and whether they're Internet Explorer or Netscape or Firefox, they face a lot of the same types of problems. I'm going to plow through a couple here. Spoofing is a great example of a problem that a lot of our customers are very sensitive about because they feel tricked. So I am going to show a so in the past, with previous versions of Internet Explorer, there was a way to do this. From an internet site, I could throw a full screen HTML window, put whatever I wanted in it, put a password prompt or something that could really con the user into doing something that we don't want them to do. Now, this was created as a part of a very powerful platform because I'm a game developer and I want to create this full screen experience for my end users. So this is something that was very important for a game developer, maybe a line of business developer to have access to. But once we found that it was being misused, as you can imagine it was misused, we had to make a change. So in XPSP2, and a lot of the things that a couple of the things that I'll talk about today will actually be different in XPSP2 versus, okay, we're not going to get there. But the same feature, so this is running off my local web server, and I have my proxy settings all tweaked out. Hopefully I will. I won't be getting to that website today, even though it's on this machine. But by putting that same URL in the internet zone, which was what I've done by adding the dot to the URL, the security restrictions on the URL change. So that window that opened in full screen before that I showed you would no longer have been able to open in full screen, and in fact would open with a title bar and a status bar around it to show the user, hey, this is something that's really from a browser window. And it would have the Internet Explorer icon at the upper left to indicate, hey, this is a web page that you'd be looking at. So another type of vulnerability that all browsers have to deal with is cross-domain security boundary enforcement. When a web page is able to gain access to either through script or through binary extensibility like an ActiveX control, if that web page is able to, when running on your machine, access a page on another domain that you also have access to, then it can impersonate you and pretend that it is you, and that malicious site can do things on your behalf on that other website. It also might be able to do things on your behalf on your hard drive. It might be able to inject HTML into a local resource and try and take advantage of your machine that way. So again, this is something that all browsers deal with. This is kind of a demonstration of how the cross-domain mitigation, the cross-domain security works. Here you can see that the script here that's going to set the MyH color to red is from the domain abc.com. The element is also on abc.com. Therefore, the script is able to change the color of the important data that we're looking at. Now, if I'm on evil.com and I try to run script against something that's on abc.com, maybe it's your credit card number, I shouldn't be able to get to it. I should be blocked from accessing that. So again, this is one of these fundamental rules of web browser security that any client and ActiveX control actually have to enforce. Here's another example. Imagine that the malicious site tries to access a function on another site on your behalf, cancels your web fare from Expedia. A scarier scenario is, imagine I go to a site and I think I'm looking at a JPEG, and I download this JPEG, and through some sort of trick, this JPEG actually turns out to be an exe. And this exe starts running with no warning. So browsers enforce security between the user and the web, and download resources from the user and the web, and make the security decisions about those resources as they're coming down. And the URL that the resource is on, the URL that JPEG is on, helps the browser decide what type of resource it is. If there's a bug in the code, then an attacker can exploit that bug in the code in order to force a malicious file onto the user's machine. I showed a quick look at a spoof before. Folks may remember the XP SP1 looking ActiveX prompt. And here you can see it's been nicely covered up. All the useful information from this prompt that helps users make security decisions has been covered. So your option is to click yes, or if you're really smart, you click the X button. But hey, this prompt is telling you that it's really safe and it's going to make the internet better. Well, if I go ahead and drag the title bar, I can see that there was an HTML window that had drawn itself on top of the ActiveX prompt. And the ActiveX prompt here was actually telling me, this is really bad stuff. This hasn't been signed. This is an unsigned control. You shouldn't be installing this. And the user was potentially being conned into installing that. That's another example of something that had historically existed. That these HTML windows, the gray window that you see in the background there, has historically existed to create a more powerful platform. And we found that people were misusing this functionality. And in XPSP2, this functionality is no longer available to be used on top of some other type of UI. So ActiveX and a plugin or a MIME handler or any type of binary code that runs inside of the browser in many ways takes on the security responsibility that the browser itself bears. So because ActiveX controls are scriptable objects, then any bad guy on the web, any bad guy on a web page that you're out to visit can talk to that control and then potentially go talk to another website on your behalf, collect your information, and send it back to their server. So for folks developing ActiveX controls, or for folks who choose to install them and use them, we kind of have to be aware of the security risks implicit with them. So again, they have to be their own browser security gurus. They have to protect against things like buffer overruns, just like any other browser would, or any internet-facing code. And this is actually something that historically we've seen vulnerabilities in, but now since Windows XP SP2 has been out, this is actually one of the remaining attack vectors that the vulnerabilities are coming out. I know that David forwarded me some questions, and people were asking about, since XPSP2, where are we seeing some of the vulnerabilities? Well, this is actually one of the attack vectors where there's ActiveX controls that are either a part of the user's machine when they buy it, or they're downloading an ActiveX control and it has a vulnerability in it, and then as a result, they go to a web page, the control gets scripted, their machine gets taken over. So this is a serious problem, and again, it affects all browsers. Buffer overruns. I force a big string into a piece of code that wasn't ready for it, or I force a corrupt image into a piece of code that wasn't ready for it, and the code that wasn't ready, falls over, and takes everything down with it. We can all imagine how that could happen. Another question that we had was, how does the SDL impact the security decisions that are made around the IE team? And the IE team is interesting because we're one of the only teams at Microsoft where we do all of our own critical updates, or effectively security patches, and we do all of our own feature development. So, like, I walk out of one meeting where we're talking about an update that needs to go out next week, and I walk into another meeting where we're talking about IE7 features that we're working on for next year. So when we're designing security fixes that are critical updates, we design security fixes kind of following the guidance of our customer base. And our customer base, the guidance has been, do not introduce major breaking changes in security updates, because our businesses are betting on running that security update as soon as it's available, and not needing to go get a new copy of some other application in order to do so. So security updates have targeted fixes. Major releases obviously include more aggressive updates that potentially have more impact to the end user experience and to application compatibility. Again, the SDL is something that we live by on a daily basis. We do threat models on every vulnerability that comes in. So if we're working on a critical update and we're designing a fix for it, we sit down and threat model it just like somebody would threat model a feature for Windows Longhorn or IE7. To us, that's another feature that we have to go out and ship to customers. Just we have to ship it faster and potentially to more people sooner. And we also use all the same, the penetration testing and code analysis tools are run on those updates as well. So has everybody here installed XPSP2 already? Anyone not? The Mac users, okay. So I didn't get hands for either. Either yes, I have installed it, or no, I have not.
We were actually involved in a copy the day before.
Awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
Walked in and I mean, hot press, and we just dropped them on.
Okay. Excellent.
Not to say anybody installed it, but if you
sure.
don't have an
Access to
excuse.
the bits. Yep.
Yep. So if you're familiar with XPSP2, there's a lot of technical changes that happened under the hood that were designed to eliminate and mitigate vulnerabilities before they could develop and go further. So that's what this first promise is about, is, hey, we're going to make you safer online, and it's just going to be the silent protection, and you just don't worry about it. Another big protection was, hey, let's demonstrate to people that their downloads are going to be safer and that they can take control away from the pop-up windows that had taken over their machines. And then we also provided a very, very rich set of customizations for folks who are running like a group policy environment where they could actually tweak the settings to work for some sites and not for others. Has everybody here, has anyone here seen the local machine zone lockdown in effect? The local machine zone lockdown is, Jeff Cooperstein has seen the local machine zone lockdown many times. The local machine zone lockdown is a feature of Windows XP Service Pack 2. And what it does is it puts very high restrictions on web pages that run off of my local hard drive. So here you can see that the information bar, the same one that I get for a pop-up window, popped up at the top, but it's got the shield, and it tells me, hey, why are you browsing to your local hard drive? Do you really need to do this? And there could be some content on here. So if I actually trust this content, no problem. I run it, and I can click this button, and it was able to run script. But if I don't, I'm a little bit safer. So one of the things that we found is that a major source of vulnerabilities was the fact that Internet Explorer was implemented as a powerful platform, as I said before. This is the unhappy, we're going to crash the We're going to crash the favorites menu, aren't we? We're going to crash the favorites menu. Because there's a file there and it doesn't like it. Wait, hold on. OK, we didn't. OK. I'm not going to go anywhere near that link as long as my machine cooperates with me. OK. So actually, OK, so the reason this page is not...
If you will.
Imagine if you will, and I can actually tell you why this page is not showing up. The reason this page is not showing up is because the antivirus scanner ate it off of my machine. It has been yanked from my machine. So this demo is very difficult. You may never see the local machines on lockdown protecting you because hopefully your anti-spyware or your antivirus scanner has caught up with whatever nastiness was floating around your machine. But what I was going to show you was going to be a live demo of this file that what it does is it's able to kick off an executable file, which then would, at that point, go and start deleting parts of my hard drive. Obviously, I wouldn't do that live here, so what it does is it just pretends to delete my hard drive. But legitimately, the feature's hard to demo in a malicious context because the spyware, the antivirus scanners will catch me doing this no matter what I do to them. So
let me understand. This only happens if the HTML file is already on your hard drive?
That's right. If the HTML file is already on your hard drive, like I was saying, I use this powerful platform. And if you want to build an application, if you want to build your your new spreadsheet application and you want to build it on HTML and you want to deploy it on people's computers locally, you can do that and have this very rich, powerful HTML to work with. But browsing around your hard drive and looking at HTML inside of IE isn't something that people would normally do. And having all of that really, really deep, rich power inside of IE was really creating like an attack target for these malicious guys. And in order to mitigate that, we just lock the whole thing down, but we still provide this single-click way to get out of it and get back working. So that's actually one of the most important mitigations in Service Pack 2. I'll blow through the rest of these because you guys want to talk about IE7. But there's one more that, if the demo gods are with me. Where is it? No, that's not the one I want. So what I want to show you is the way that, aha. Here we go. So if this site is still up, and I hope that it is, and if my wireless is working, I'm going to take you to a site that is now trying to, let's look at the installing stuff. It's not supposed to do that. So this site is going to try very, very, very aggressively to get me to install stuff on my machine. And I think it's scripting the status bar right now. But generally, OK, so exactly. They were scripting the status bar to pretend that they had me. But now they know that I'm on Service Pack 2. So the site has gone to great lengths to encourage me to download and install their software. And in exchange for installing the software, I'm going to get free lyrics. I'm going to take does anyone in the room think I should install this? I will get free lyrics. They're going to be free. That's a good question. So let's see what. So now, in the past, like I said, these prompts would come up in users' faces, and they would be attacked with the please install this software. You have to install the software. Click yes to continue, and over again. And the ActiveX control would nag and nag and nag until the user didn't know any better, and they clicked yes. And this is how a lot of people get spyware in their machines. This Service Pack 1, not updated, get attacked by these prompts. And people don't know what to do, and eventually they click yes accidentally. This was a big problem. And now you can see that the lengths these guys have to go to is much, much greater. So even if I click, yes, I want to install it up there in the information bar, now we've changed the way that that download dialog looks. And what we've tried to do is make sure that end users understand that the download dialog for an ActiveX control, this is really just like installing an exe on your machine, right? These two things now look very, very similar, such that users get it. Like, hey, if I click yes here, this is installing something, and it's going to potentially be able to do things on my machine. Okay, so it says free lyrics. I mean, music unlimited. You know what? I will say never install. And now we're safe. Okay. So this is actually a really important part of the plan here to keep stuff off of people's machines in the first place. So another question that David forwarded to me was, well, so how do you guys make the decision between a security scenario and a functionality scenario? I want to be safe from everything. I want all my apps to keep working. And the key message here is that we have to work with our customers and our partners to release a security design mitigation and get feedback on it. So one of the examples that we went through is in Service Pack 2. In order to protect that JPEG turns into an exe thing that I showed you guys, we forced IE to make kind of a two-factor authentication before it would take a JPEG and decide it was an exe. In fact, if it thought, there's reason for me to believe that this file is other than what it says it was, IE would be so aggressive as to rename the file to the less malicious file type. So we deployed this fix, and we had this beta out, and we started getting some feedback from folks who were developing plugins for IE, specifically folks like Adobe were having trouble with their PDF download mechanism because the PDF download mechanism was slightly off kilter for this two-factor authentication thing that we had. And what we found is there was a way to do work inside of IE to look up the chain a little bit and match these two factors that Adobe was providing us and verify that they were in fact the same thing. It wasn't a JPEG and an exe. It was a PDF and a GDF PDF, right? But they were the same thing, and they could both go to Adobe. And therefore, with that feedback from Adobe, we were able to come up with a more compatible fix that was still secure to protect against the vulnerability scenario. Another thing that we do with the mitigations as we design them is that in general, when we build a security mitigation or a security feature, we'll set it to be on for IE so that IE has the benefit of those protections, and every other application in the world that hasn't had the chance to go out and run around and test with these new security features isn't going to be broken by it. And if you think about it, folks might never get attacked in their application that reads that little Excel spreadsheet that's on their local hard drive. So they may never need the protections in that little application that's just on their machine. But they definitely need the protections inside of IE. So protections are on by default inside of IE, and then everybody else gets to say, I want to be a part of that too. I want to be a part of that too. I want to be a part of that too. Now, again, I'm going to say there are exceptions to this rule either way. There are scenarios where we've decided that something is so old and nobody's been thinking about it for so long, we're just going to turn it off for everyone. And then we'll switch the mitigation to being an opt-out mitigation rather than an opt-in. But those are rare scenarios. Another thing that I think I've taken to heart is when we build these security mitigations, there has to be a door out of them for legitimate people to get working again. And that door out of that security mitigation has to be something that users understand, that the developer who's trying to fix their application can understand clearly, and that really isn't like there aren't 10 different ways out of it. Because if we create 10 different ways out of a security mitigation, then we've created 10 different places where we have to go decide to trust this application again. We have to be kind of straightforward and transparent and say, hey, there are 2 or 3 ways to work around the local machine zone lockdown, and here's how they're going to work. Again, we're very open to input on those compatibility mitigations, but we think it's important to keep them simple and straightforward. So another question was, what are the vulnerabilities that have come out since the last major update? Now, I'm going to call Service Pack 2 the last major update of IE. So again, I talked about this before when we were walking through the vulnerabilities. ActiveX controls have become kind of the remaining major attacked vector in the IE space, and that's something that we know that, we see that, and we're taking steps to address it. I'll talk about that in a couple of slides. Drag and drop was something that we had seen like potential little issues before, and we had patched issues like that before, and then all of a sudden a variation came out. And this is one where we looked at this and we had threat modeled it before, and we'd looked for variations before and hadn't found it. Now, in order to, as a lesson learned from Service Pack 2, one of the things we're doing is when we build our threat model, we're taking our historic vulnerabilities and we're making those threats. Those are now threats to be mitigated. If you have ever been beaten up in a dark, if you have a feature and it's ever been beaten up in a dark alley by anybody, you want a picture of that guy's face on your wall so you know what he looks like and you know how to protect against him. And that's the philosophy that we're using inside of the IE team to eliminate things like that. The drag and drop actually has been the mitigation that's included in the current security patch is a more assertive security mitigation, similar to what would be in Service Pack 2. So we think that's the last of that. Another question was, what's the IE team doing about emerging threats? So spyware is obviously one of the biggest problems that we're all faced with today. We deal with it as end users. We deal with it as probably administrators. We deal with it on customers' machines. And phishing is something that is getting more insidious. I know that I've heard about a lot of cases now where phishers are actually are setting up fake local banking sites, which I found particularly nefarious. And they're targeting folks who have, maybe a umich.edu email alias because they know, hey, that's Ann Arbor, and we can, get the, University of Michigan Credit Union or something like that. There is definitely a phishing issue that we have to deal with. So, we're aware of these emerging issues, obviously. I'm going to talk about both of those in the context of IE7. And it says IE for Longhorn up here, IE7, IE7, IE7. Go ahead.
So I don't remember hearing an announcement that there was going to be an IE update this summer.
The announcement was that there will be a beta of IE7 this summer.
That's what it is. Okay.
Yes.
So this is that thing.
This is the beta this summer will be a beta of this work. Now, beta doesn't mean it's going to have everything in it, okay, right? And again, in particular, as we go forward from this point in the presentation on, I know everything is under NDA, yes. But in particular, from this point on, this is definitely NDA. So David said that, we want to get into the dirt. We want to hear what's going on in the IE team. Roll up your sleeves with us and come see what's happening. That's right. Some of the stuff that's happening on the IE team. The cross-domain boundary. I talked about cross-domain before, and what we're doing in IE7 is we have gone through and re-architected all of the through ways where the cross-domain vulnerabilities had been happening before, and enforced tighter security by default in all of those through ways. And that's something that will be something that you're going to want to look for in the beta, because you're going to want to look for compat impact, and obviously you're going to want to look for the fact that it's protecting effectively as well. Another thing, that JPEG that turned into an exe, well, one of the ways it could do that is it might have some URL parsing tricks in it. So if I've got a couple % signs and an @ symbol and a couple of other cool characters in my URL, there's a possibility of that URL being misinterpreted by the browser because of all of those characters that actually have special meaning in the context of the browser. And in IE7, we are, again, reworking all of that logic in order to create very consistent and assertive and secure defaults for how those sets of characters will be handled. That's actually something, again, one of the things you'll see here is you'll see some sites that have URLs that are formed in a certain way that are good sites that have never hurt anybody, and because of the formation of URLs with specific characters, there may be issues, and that's something that we're going to want to look for in the beta. So we're also discussing running IE with lower privileges and taking some of the functionality out of IE. But hey, it's just about hosting a web page. Does it really need to be running in the same user privileges that I have? Now, this doesn't solve the world, because if I download an exe and some spyware and choose to run it on my machine, well, it didn't matter what context IE was running it in, because I've still got to be able to download a driver, and I've got to be able to tell the difference between a driver and that click yes to get free lyric stuff. And I hope I know that, but I know my mom doesn't. So this this thing about running IE with lower privilege has benefits, but doesn't really solve everything. So one of the other important things, we've talked about ActiveX, and ActiveX being a remaining attack vector. So when I went to that site that tried really aggressively to get that control onto my machine, I got that information bar at the top of the screen. And I didn't actually run the ActiveX control until I clicked on the information bar, said, if I would have said install, that thing would have started running. Well, there's a bunch of ActiveX controls that are already on my machine. And those ActiveX controls can be used freely by any web page, as long as they're marked safe for scripting and my security settings are set such that they're allowed. And one of the things we're going to do in IE7 is try to set a more secure default for that, so that users actually get a chance to say, you know what, this crazy MSN chat control thing, I'm not on an MSN site right now, and I don't really want to deal with that. And one of the things that we'll see is that if this user experience is something that people can understand, and if people who need it can understand it, and people who don't need it, it's out of their way, then what we'll see is a great deal of protection from this simply by having those ActiveX controls off by default. We'll also have a safe boot mode where IE is just going to kick off. Nothing, no browser helper objects, no ActiveX controls. So you can browse around and feel more confident about the transactions that you're doing in the browser. So phishing, again, this is a major issue, and one of the most important issues that we're going to deal with in IE7. So the address bar and the SSL icon are like gleaming beacons of hope, right? Like this is what we want users to look for and point out and say, yes, I trust that URL. Yes, I see the lock icon. Yes, maybe I've even checked and seen who the certificate authority is, and I feel good about this transaction, and I can proceed from here before I give up my personal information. So we know we have to make that user experience that gleaming beacon of hope, so people get it and they can use it. And we think we've got a long way to go from today. I'm going to show you a little bit of that in a second. The other thing, and this is actually very exciting, and I think one of the biggest innovations that we're planning right now, is that we intend to have an anti-phishing service that is available to run from within the browser. So if I'm a user and I have this service enabled, then there's a possibility that I've got a list of sites on my machine that the service knows about that are just, hey, somebody reported these as bad. The eBay service has aggregated these into some place in the cloud, and now we know that this isn't a good site, and we're not going to let you go there. Or we'll give you very clear guidance about what you're going into before you go there, or as clear guidance as we can. So
that's being aggregated by some third party, is that right? So we don't have liability issues? I'm sorry.
there are a number of folks who are aggregating the data. I believe that the data comes from a number of sources. I think there's kind of like a coalition. All right, you're looking at me like.
Yeah, there are liability issues, and we're doing a risk assessment. And
have you thought about doing it the other way around? The browser looks at form fields that I fill in. If it sees a password or a social security number, anything like that, and the site's not on my whitelist, it pops up and says, do you really want to put this site on your whitelist?
Yeah, we've considered a number of different kind of alternatives of how we create a user experience for this. And I think one of the things that we found when we implemented Server 2003 is that the idea of managing kind of an allow list and a block list on a machine by machine or like user by user case was something that was very, very heavy overhead for those of us who are very savvy, and it's something that we don't think would scale out to average folks using IE at home. Yeah.
How many sites are there that I need to type my social security number and password to?
Sure. So that's an interesting point. I think we are looking at ideas to say, hey, like, can we be more opportunistic about asking the user or checking on the reputation of a URL in kind of a scoped set of scenarios, like the scenario you're suggesting. So having the allow list works until the user doesn't recognize the URL anymore and just decides to type it in, right? If the user gets conned into ebay.good.com being really eBay, then we're kind of back where we started. So, good.
Just on that particular point, it doesn't make sense because the browser has a history and the guy went to eBay before. Now he's going somewhere else and he should get the red warning.
So I think if I hear your question correctly, you're saying that there should be browser heuristics that are doing a comparison, like a comparison between the site that the user is going to and the site that they've been to in the past, right?
I think what I'm saying is that sometime in the past I went to the real eBay site and typed my passcode. I added that address.
Yep.
If I go somewhere else, I should get a very direct warning telling me this is not the usual place.
Except, of course, unless he's cleared his cache from the Longhorn feature that we've given to clear the track.
Yes.
Well, and there are some other issues with that. I mean, one of the things that we see is people are just going to IP addresses, right? There's an IP address on a server farm someplace in a country far, far away, and it says SunTrust Bank on the JPEG and on the front of the screen. And again, are users going to be able to make good decisions about using that or not? And savvy users will, and I think savvy users are definitely probably already ahead of the curve. The place where we've got the problem is the people who think the IP address really is their real bank URL, right? That's where there's absolutely an issue right now.
Yeah, so I was going to do take a minute or so to introduce it. So part of what trustworthy computing is supposed to have been about dependability, although we haven't talked about it a lot. But it strikes me that the big thing that happened was the Dr. Watson stuff, where real customers, real crashes got voluntarily reported and data got collected, and it's been a real revolution. So I was coming in thinking that is there a Dr. Watson for security, so that you could get the same what's happening to the real users. And
that's great.
I couldn't help but wonder that a bunch of the stuff that you're doing there could lead to that. It's kind of hard to click on I was broken into, but this warning happened, and we think you're going to go to a phishing site. Would you like to report this to Microsoft? Something like that. I could imagine we might get that same kind of Dr. Watson effect of what's really happening out there. What are the attacks looking like today?
Yep.
You know, some of that feedback system. Have you already thought about that? Or?
Absolutely. So the ability for a user to say, this is a phishing site, or this isn't, or like you told me it was, and I need to let you know, Microsoft, it's not. Right?
Opportunity to report back to Microsoft and this data collection and all that stuff.
Exactly. Right. That's exactly the type of thing that we're trying to investigate right now, is how we can adapt the service so that it can collect real feedback from end users. And obviously, there's a lot of potential opportunity, because theoretically, any site that's really going to be committing fraud is something that we would want to protect against with this.
I think what Dr. Watson does is kind of give
Microsoft more quickly. It takes less time to figure out something's broken, and whether you could get more quickly figure out new attacks as well as new sites, or somehow that would be happening. So if you could get that, and then you could be creating these lists of signatures or sites that could get blocked through some service, then I could imagine a fast enough feedback mechanism that it might actually, make progress.
Yeah, the times that we're targeting for the feedback loop are actually pretty impressive. I don't know if I can get into them here, but the feedback loop should happen in a pretty like, think of it as a couple hours time frame from between when users start saying, hey, I think this is bad, to where the feedback loop is kicked in and started to flag that, and there's an ops guy sitting around at a terminal somewhere and hits a big red button, and then that URL starts generating a warning.
Everybody benefits from that.
Then everybody benefits from it. Yeah.
So does that then populate the kind of the retardant feature?
Meaning the anti-phishing feature?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what would happen. So there would be a threshold probably at which we would say, oh, there have been 20 reports or some n reports, and again, this is the ops guys, right? They go figure out how to do this and how to get the response out and how to hit the button. So I don't really know what the specific turnaround time would be. But
then assuming that process works, then it could be a matter of hours before all IE7 users are protected against that one site.
Yeah, and I think there, the mechanics of put a URL on a web server are actually the easy part. There's probably a lot of real hard thinking that has to go, there probably has to be a human in the loop at some point between that somebody reporting a site as being a malicious site and then actually populating that bad site out to that service, because you have to have somebody verifying, like, hey, yes, we see something, or getting on the phone or something like that.
Followed a half an hour by the IRA having to get involved because we're being sued.
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. I was on the same phone call. So.
I'm not sure if this is what you're saying, or it's a different version, but imagine that the client scanner detects something bad on a client machine, and without the user doing anything except accept sharing information, it would ship a history of the recent browsing to some central place, and all the histories get collected, and automatically some correlations are made, and someone in Microsoft or somewhere else, but not the user, would go to the sites that were recently visited by lots of people who had trouble and put those on the list. Is that something you're...
That's an interesting idea. I don't think we've actually thought about kind of collecting that level of data from users directly. And
it's a good at the stack trace, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Why aren't the privacy people on the
Well,
okay.
The Dr. Watson thing is a voluntary.
Yeah.
You must consent.
It's a voluntary mechanism. You do reveal some kind of information about what programs you're running.
Sure.
And I think something like 10 or 20, I don't know what the number, 10 or 20% of users send those reports in. So my guess would be something like 10 or 20% of the people would be willing to give up their privacy concerns.
The last 20 websites they do?
Well, they reveal information that might be bad.
So one of the things that I think, again, there's an interesting idea there of, kind of dump the whole browsing history up. There's obviously a lot of, like, I wouldn't really be comfortable with anybody doing that on my machine. I just, as a security guy, I would be really freaked out, and a privacy guy too. But hey, I'm uncomfortable with your question. So
your very existence offends.
Sorry, but
My wife says that too.
but back to your point about like how we could do this in a way that's similar to Watson. That's kind of the model we've been thinking of it in. That the user gets to make a choice about, hey, like, I want to know, like, I think I'm going to my bank's website, i.e., am I going to my bank's website? Like, is this going the direction I think it's going? I mean, obviously we can't make that kind of a promise.
But the Dr. Watson thing is now telling people, if you install this patch, we've seen this problem before. We think this, you should go here to fix your machine. I can imagine a version of this is actually that was a phishing attack. You get email, later that says, we
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, we investigated in that, and I don't know whether you decided to click through or not, but that was probably a phishing site that you went to.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine people might, like something.
Yeah, that's interesting. The idea of having a feedback loop as a follow-up, even if there's no information, is interesting. But I think the idea that I think the core user scenario here is absolutely, I think I'm going to my bank's website. Am I really going to my bank's website? And having the power as a user to ask that question and feel comfortable with the answer. Right?
But how would they can't know the answer, right?
Well, one of the things they can do is, we've got the shining beacons of hope, right, at the top of the screen, and I'm gonna demo those in a second here. How far over am I? Like
15 minutes.
Okay, and how long before you get the cane out and pull me off stage?
Probably another
30 seconds.
No, you got another 20.
Okay. 20 minutes? Oh wow. Okay.
There'll be plenty of questions. Please don't feel
Okay.
obligated. In fact, it'd be a mistake for you to fill 20 minutes.
We're almost done. Next slide, or not next slide, but we're almost
on the
done.
Dr. Watson point, just quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Go ahead.
One thing is to notice that this is going to involve bank account numbers or fake bank addresses.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot more sensitive data than the data that's been in Dr. Watson, where it's usually about how your crash is. So that's a reason to be a step more careful. The second thing is, I can just imagine sitting next to Ira, I can imagine how scary it would be to be certifying, yes, this is your bank. Yeah. No, it's not your bank. Oops, 1 million people just got scammed and now they're going to come to us.
No, you don't
and that's on the other
but,
hand, but there may be a third-party service that would be willing to plug in the way virus companies historically plugged in.
Sure.
And that might be a more promising service.
So I may have overstated. Sorry, things are hung here. I may have overstated the scenario a little bit, but that's kind of the way. Again, this is all about pulling off the covers and talking to the real IE team. So I'm the real IE team. The way I'm thinking about it as I'm trying to develop this feature is with this user in mind, right? And I'm absolutely going to make sure that we've designed in such a way that we aren't, walking into issues like that. But the design idea is to enable at least that intent. And we should probably be working with you guys and saying, here's how, let's take a look, make sure that we're on the right track. Does this really solve the problem? So for some reason or other, PowerPoint decided it had enough.
One of those, I'm not sure what's a feature or bug thing, right?
Yeah. I just can't win today. So we've got the other, yeah, look at this. Just grinding away around the scenes.
So would all these configuration problems happen when you were using Longhorn and the new generation?
You mean is my machine messed up because I'm running Longhorn?
I don't know. I'm not.
No. This is a machine that has so many different types of beta, software on it that I couldn't even tell you. So that's definitely not the issue. It's
not that it's hard to use. It's just that it's got bug software on it.
No, well, it's because I take private builds from developers and put them in folders on different parts of the machine because I run demos all the time. So at any rate, the anti-phishing stuff, there are some releases that have been, historically have helped address the problem a little bit. The @ symbol was actually a big problem because the @ symbol in the URL kept coming back over and over again, where the phishers would find a way to shove the @ symbol in a URL in such a way that IE appeared to be at a site it was not at. Like it looked very convincing, and they were doing a great job with that. And in the spring of '04, we yanked it completely. It's gone completely, and that was a big step. And there is the filter coming this summer, and then IE7 hopefully in December of this year. So a little bit of more background on the anti-phishing filter, IP addresses, the @ sign. We are going to look at forms. Is SSL being used on a site that looks like a bank site? So there's a lot of stuff that we are looking at that I think is right along the alley of what you guys were describing earlier. So I want to do this isn't a real IE7 demo per se, because I don't have it on my machine. But one of the things I want to demonstrate is I'm just going to run IE with least privilege right here on my machine without doing anything. This is something that's already available on XPSP2. And what just happened is that I launched the IE process with the right restricted token. And I'm going to do this quickly before my battery dies. And you can see that, hey, my favorites aren't showing up, right? And really what that's about is now IE doesn't have the privileges that are required for it to write to that folder. And because of that, well, I can still browse, right? So I can still browse, and browsing works great. But if I were to try and download something, then that download would not be able to kick off because of the fact that that the process that would be launching it doesn't have the privileges to do that. Again, this isn't the complete solution, because a user could at some point just say, yeah, I want to download that driver from Dell, and that driver from Dell turns out to be real nasty stuff. But this is one of the things that we think is a part of kind of the continuing evolution of IE security and running at the lowest possible privilege and kind of addressing it from a defense in depth perspective. So another thing, now I actually have to close this version of IE because it won't be able to go see all of the fun screenshots I want to show. Let me see here. Okay. So I want to show you guys a wireframe demo of what the anti-phishing and the SSL user experience are going to look like. So this is just a wireframe, but a couple things you'll see here. You see tabs, and you see the address bar at the top. Now, when the address bar goes to an HTTPS site, we're going to highlight the owner of the certificate along with the lock icon in the address bar. So this is going to create something that is going to provide a lot more kind of trust for the user to know, hey, I'm at the site that I think I am. Because all in one place, they're going to be able to see these key indicators about who they're dealing with. It's not down in the bottom of the page where it could be covered up by a JPEG or like a fake one. This will always be there. One of the things that we've seen people use before is pop-up windows. And I don't have a screenshot of what a pop-up window is going to look like in IE7. But you can rest assured that even a pop-up window will be safer from those type of JPEGs that would try to do bad stuff up at the top. This actually is an older image because we think that the drop-down that shows the certificate information actually drops down straight off of the address bar as like a kind of a big menu with very friendly UI and helps me feel good about the site that I'm doing business with. And oh, well, maybe I should be worried about those forms, right? Oh, they want my credit card number. Oh, it's not HTTPS. Uh-oh, something's going on here. So in the same context, in that same user experience where we're going to teach people to look and see if the site is good, we're also going to be able to surface these warnings that we have from the anti-phishing filter. So you can see kind of the, go ahead.
Can you tell me exactly where the address in the left of the address bar comes from and what it is, the address of?
It's a fake address.
No, but I mean in the real system, in the real design. Will the web page have any ability to control what appears there?
No, absolutely
not.
You actually
it's
not
really
scriptable.
Or what?
That is the real URL. That's the real address bar. There's no ability to script it. One of the things that we've had in the past is we've had the title bar has been scriptable. Yeah. So I can do all sorts of funky stuff with the title bar and make it look like it's a site that it's not, or try to squeeze things off of the title bar.
So if a page of HTML has a bunch of fancy scripts and stuff in it that are trying to obfuscate the URL that it's really sending you to, you can fight your way through all that and get the real target URL up there in the address bar.
If it's got scripts that are trying to obfuscate the URL, yes. So one of the things I talked about before, and actually I should bring this up again, the fact that we are hardening that URL parsing logic is going to make it a lot harder for people to get crappy-looking URLs in there. I mean, I can have a crappy-looking URL, but I won't be able to kind of hide special characters in it and do different tricks to get back and forth. Like I am who I am, and through no power of script or anything else can I mess with the address bar. Now, there are if I am able to get code running on your machine, right, then I could probably change the address bar, right? If I'm able to install an ActiveX controller browser helper object, then I could install, But at that point, it's kind of over. I'm doing whatever else I want.
You do a redirect. You don't necessarily get the place you went to in the address bar. You get some garbage.
Ah, okay. I think I see what you're saying. So you're talking about proxy scenarios where you try to type in.
I'm talking about a phishing message. It says, click on this link to Bank of America and change your password, and you do it. And in fact, there's a redirect and everything else, and it'll say Bank of America up at the top, but that's not where you went.
Okay. I think what you're talking about is there is a vulnerability called super spoof. That might be what you're talking about. And the way that works is that it's a complicated vulnerability that uses a set of pop-up windows, and it tries to navigate some frames, and it's actually relatively sophisticated and it's hard to pull off on XPSP2. And in the event that it does happen, what happens is that all of these windows kind of opened, and you have to get through the pop-up blocker, and then you try to navigate a subframe of the site that's actually the good site in the first place. So in general, on Service Pack 2, that's not going to be a problem. And there are kind of browser-wide issues, like with for example, I think Safari and Opera and Firefox also have some issues with this behavior as well. Actually,
time out. I think we need to talk about some bigger issues rather than more of these details. Does anybody have problems with changing the level?
Do you guys want to see these?
No.
No discussion.
No. So let me bring up
Sure.
a bigger issue, and then others I think will have them also.
Okay.
Are you writing this software from scratch, or is this are you adapting a previous code base?
We are not writing the software from scratch.
Great. So you're adopting some previous IE code base.
Yes, that's correct.
What are you going to do about all the vulnerabilities? What are you going to do to convince yourself that this code doesn't? There are all these browser holes that keep getting attacked independent of the additional phishing and so on.
So I think that was part of what I wanted to get across earlier in the presentation. And there are a set of vulnerabilities that, like I said, we use the SDL. We have like a weather map of here's how our vulnerabilities break down. And when I talked about the cross-domain hardening and the URL parsing hardening, those are the types of vulnerabilities that you're worried about. That's explicitly the types of vulnerabilities that have historically plagued the IE code base. They actually aren't as severe in Service Pack 2. The remaining vulnerability in Service Pack 2, like the remaining attack vector that people are going for in Service Pack 2 is ActiveX. But we're hardening the cross-domain boundary, we're hardening the URL parsing logic, and then ActiveX, a separate issue, right? Like I said, those are off by default. Does that help? Do you have a class of vulnerabilities that you're concerned about that you don't think are addressed?
The ones that aren't historical.
Okay.
I mean, I believe that Microsoft writes better code today than they did 3 years ago, and you're using 3 years ago code base, and it's making me nervous.
Okay.
Second, if I may, there are all these seem like nice support features in Longhorn that could give you leverage, like the fact that you can create these like virtual registries or virtual file systems as a way of containing damage. It doesn't seem like you're using any of that stuff. It seems, at least, you've concentrated on dealing with specific attacks you know about, but it doesn't seem like you're trying systematically to take advantage of what you're being given.
So when I talked about running IE with lower privilege, when I brought it up and said, hey, this is now running without the ability to write to the disk, that's exactly the type of solution we're trying to build there. So you're dead right, like that is the type of solution that is necessary to provide defense in depth against a vulnerability that, hey, maybe we haven't thought about it yet.
I think the higher level comment that Fred is suggesting is that you showed us a lot of examples, but you didn't actually present sort of the general principles by which you followed for this new version of IE design, such that it would completely cut off, all the instances of that class.
Yes.
Here's one example. So you get this sense of this we can fix, and that we can fix, and that we can prevent, and but that's great. But we don't know that there's a sister in the so anyway, you get the point.
I think that's great feedback about the. I think that's great feedback about the way that the data is showing up here. And
but if you can assure us that in fact there was, by following SDL or whatever, that there was a systematic process by which you identified, these sets of classes of vulnerabilities, and
So that's part of the reason that we started off with here are the vulnerabilities that browsers are exposed to. That list of 5 isn't a I cherry picked my favorite 5, right? That's a pretty accepted list that addresses the types of vulnerabilities that the browsers are exposed to. And within each of those categories, IE7 has major, massive changes to address those types of vulnerabilities. So that at a high level, I want you to feel good that we understand the battlefield. We've been doing this for a while. We understand the battlefield, and we have troops deployed on every front, right? And then at a deeper level, I want you to know that these vulnerabilities that have happened in the past, we want to reinforce, we treat them like new threats. If a vulnerability happened 3 years ago, and we will include that in our SDL now, and that's actually something that only the IE team is doing that we think is actually more aggressive in some ways, because we are trying to make sure that our mitigations are both comprehensive in hey, the battle map of the 5 classes of vulnerabilities, but also very, very complete in the context of the historical stuff. When we go out and we build the anti-cross-domain mitigation, we do a threat model, right? And we have penetration testing applied to it, right? And we have the historic data that we use as well as backing data and kind of like thought to encourage people to go out and be more creative and find variations and things like that. So that's the best answer I think I can give you. I don't know if it addresses. I don't know if it makes you happy, and I don't know if there's something that you think is still missing. I would want to make sure that we can in the future bring that back to this audience so we can address that. Is there something, or do you want like?
I don't know why I should why I should trust the next version of IE any more than I should the previous.
Okay.
As an end user, especially when you're going to be asking me about phishing sites now too. I mean, there are different classes of users.
So again, right?
As a user at your level, I'm happy that you're doing all the stuff with the anti-phishing and all that. But maybe someone. I mean, they're just. I can't answer your questions too succinctly.
No, it's okay. I really want to make sure though that it's clear, right? There's the menu of ways that you can get beat up on the internet when you're running like internet-facing code, right? And we have that menu and we have specific targeted mitigations against all of them. And when you ask the question, right, like why should I trust the next version of IE more? Well, the answer is because this is a major release of the browser in which we can go and make those very deep changes that will impact compatibility but will offer dramatic improvements in security. And if we're releasing a service pack or a security patch, we can't do that because if we do that, then we take down somebody's business, right? So that's the if we go and we re-architect or replace a DLL in a service pack or even in a security update, then like all of a sudden, things just don't work, and people can't run a business.
So Rob, let me give you an example.
Okay.
And you're a security guy, and it's a tit-for-tat business. But had you come to us and said, let's ignore some of the phishing problems because that's new enough, and I don't know how to solve it in general.
Okay.
Had you come to us and said, all the vulnerabilities in the past Internet Explorer would be defended against if every copy of Internet Explorer was different. That is, we compiled it slightly differently so all the code was rearranged, this obfuscation stuff. Not advocating this, I just want to show you a line of argumentation. If you had said, we're doing this, and that guarantees that if an attack works anywhere, it won't work very many places because there are a zillion different copies now. That would have been an architectural response that would have given me some assurance more than if you said, well, we know all the places where we're referencing strings, and I went and I put an if statement in front of each one, which is more of a patching style. Now, you haven't at the level of vulnerabilities we know about stated a principled basis for a defense. Your basis has been more a retaliatory basis. And there's this new set of things on the table having to do with phishing, and you're again showing ad hoc defenses, which may be the best we can, but I'm inclined to believe that there are some underlying principles that if somebody thought about it, they'd be able to come up with a principled defense from which maybe your ad hoc defenses can be derived or maybe not.
So I don't agree with you that we don't have a principled defense. Our defense is principled around defense in depth, right? So local machines in lockdown is an example of defense in depth that we've already shipped. The running IE with lower privileges is an example of defense in depth, and that's a principle, right? You agree with that? Is that are we on the same page that that's a principle?
You and I don't agree on what principle means.
Okay, that's fair then. So and from the other, yeah, I would. The obfuscation idea is the obfuscation idea is interesting, but I'm having trouble understanding exactly how I can.
Let me suggest this. We're running sort of short on time here. We get a series of follow-up questions and things of that nature from the board I would be happy to take those, forward those to you and the architects, and get some reasoned written answers, if you're okay with doing that, and then presenting it back to you.
Sure.
Is that serious? I mean, I don't want to cut things off too much.
It's going to be a rat hole if we go to okay. Unless there's somebody I'm coming.
Dick, you were going to say something?
Oh, the same thing. I was just going to say your example in fishing, where you said using the @ signs, and the appearance that we're getting is that you don't allow @ signs anymore. That's a fix to that one thing.
That's a good point.
What's really the class? There's other things that fit in there. So you want to look at what are the class of things, and then what principles are you using to do it.
Sure.
That's the taste of the idea.
Okay, so I want to make it clear that the URL parsing work is complete re-architecture of the stack top to bottom to parse URLs consistently, all new code, and like that will eliminate in IE7 the types of inconsistencies that the @ symbol was a symptom of, right? So if we're talking like symptoms versus disease, the @ symbol was a symptom, right? Having the 3-year-old code that you described, doing the URL parsing was the disease, and doing a complete re-architecture of the URL parsing stack, top to bottom, is the cure. Does that make sense?
But in re-architecting it, you have some principles that these are things we're trying to avoid, or that we're trying to do, not specifics, but at a higher level. I mean, something drove the new parsing algorithm.
So the new parsing algorithms.
I mean, it shouldn't be a whole bunch of case statements that say, "Oh, if it has an @ you don't allow that."
No. The new parsing code is very standards focused and very much about making sure we maintain consistency. Because as long as we maintain consistency, then and the same URL is being understood by every piece of the code base, then everything's fine, right? Like.
Did you just say only one parser?
What's that?
Did you just say have only one parser? That's how you maintain consistency?
one set of parsing functions to handle URLs.
I mean, when I was running MSRC, one of the reactions I had was that it felt like we were having the same experience over and over, with a gazillion cross-domain vulnerabilities, that we were patching one by one. So when you tell me, that you have a single common model, which I think is what you're hearing, what I'm hearing, you have a single common model of what a good URL looks like.
Yep.
You have one place you're going to parse that, and you're going to accept only what you think are good URLs, and everything else you're going to give a 404. Then that's a significant change from the IE that I know and used to love.
Love it.
Well,
and I want to be clear that there's two parts to the cross-domain issue. There is consistency in the URL, and the other part is the handling of the URL by the window checks, and the anti-cross-domain hardening that I described ensures complete, consistent window checking. And again, those are the two pieces. Like I need I need heat and wood to make fire, right? Well, if I've got a good URL and a safe window, then I don't have a cross-domain issue.
Okay. With that, if there are questions, please, let's make sure we do the follow-up, and I will look back with Rob, and we'll talk about that. Are you going to dinner with that too?
I might.
You might.